Nice to see you all. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to do the 5th day in the series of 6 on how to become your own therapist or becoming your own therapist. And yesterday we made a start with how can we do things differently? What can we do in order to influence our mind? And we had some internet problems yesterday, so we were streaming, not even streaming, we were on Zoom from a retreat hut down at the hill of Tushita. So unfortunately we couldn't do the live stream, and we're very sorry for those who missed out. But the recordings you can find on Facebook and on YouTube. So you can catch up. Maybe you already did, but if you haven't done that yet, these recordings are available. So that internet is out of our control. You know, it was somewhere down in Dharamsala, a big cable was broken and nobody here had internet. So before we start, we settle our mind when we do a little meditation in order to focus the mind. The best way to focus the mind is to bring the mind to the body. The body is always in the present moment. It is never in the future, nor in the past. So therefore, when we bring our mind to our body, we bring our mind to the present moment. And when we focus on the present moment, we automatically let go of all the thoughts caught up in the past or the thoughts preparing for the future. They all come to rest. And when the thoughts related to the past and the future come to rest, also our disturbing emotions come to rest. The mind becomes more clear. And then we set up a positive motivation. For listening, reflecting and meditating today. And when we set up a positive motivation, we try to do that beyond this life. Because if we just set up a motivation to have things going better in this life, we would only use our aversion and our attachment. And so we want to transform that. We want to come from a different place than from our delusions. So if we don't do it just for ourselves, but anything that we learn from these teachings, that we also dedicate it to other sentient beings, the people around us that we like, but also people that we don't know. And if you can, even also those that you do not like or who have harmed you. You open up your heart. And so when we can think like that, every moment that we engage in these activities becomes extremely meritorious. And it doesn't become the cause for suffering. So to give a very little recap from yesterday. Yesterday we started looking at what can we do in order to do things differently so that they do not become causes for suffering, but become causes for happiness. And so we started looking into the relationship that we have with ourselves and how we can improve that. And after that, we spoke about how we can stop creating the causes for suffering. The Buddha describes the causes for suffering as being karma and delusions. So we spoke about karma and how karma ripens and what kind of actions lead to suffering and which kind of actions lead to happiness. And we said that one way karma ripens is in the form of an experience. And often we have the feeling that we need something, right? We have needs, whether that is a kind word, whether that is feeling included, whether that is being acknowledged, or it can also be money or food or, any physical thing that you need in this life. So what the Buddha says is by creating virtuous actions, which are actions that are of benefit to others, we create the causes that similar things come back to us. So if I have the need for money, the best way to make money is to give money away. If I have a strong need to be liked, the best way is to like and to love others. If I have a need to be acknowledged for my qualities, some people have that, or acknowledged as a human being, the best way to find that is by starting to acknowledge others. Then we create constantly causes for that what we feel that we need deep inside. So normally we get what we need by following our attachment, right? And if we let go of our attachment and instead start creating the causes for what we need in accordance with the law of cause and effect, then whatever we need will come to us. I understand that in the beginning you do not trust that, right? It's like, how does karma know that I need this? Or how does the universe know that I need this? But you have to start little and you start trying where you can change your behavior without getting too anxious or too fearful. And then you listen more and more to the teachings, which can give you confidence and faith that it works in actuality like that. And you try, you know, but it takes a long time because the habit for that, in order to get what I need, I use my attachment. That is so deep in our psychic. So we need to practice a long time, think about it again and again and again and again to get some kind of confidence that it really works like that. Okay, that doesn't happen overnight. So, and then at the end of the session, we meditated on developing self-compassion by taking on a particular suffering or problem that we experience at this moment. And we did this with the motivation that may this become a cause for other people who experience a similar problem to be free of their suffering. So for those who were here, how was that meditation? How did you feel afterwards? Can you give me a little feedback on that? Because what we were doing, we were gonna take on suffering. Normally, when there is some problem or kind of suffering, unpleasant feelings arising in the mind, we have this aversion. I do not want to feel it. And so we changed that behavior and said, give it to me, I'll take it. And not just for myself, I'll take it on behalf of everybody so that everybody is going to be free from suffering. So somebody said, I feel lighter. Somebody says, I can still feel the effects of this. I'm slowly starting to see myself as a survivor and not as a victim of suffering. Very good. I could see people suffering. And somebody else says it was healing, calm, and happy. I saw people suffering. I feel less heavy. There was so much peace of mind yesterday evening after the meditation. It was inspiring. I felt a deep relief and presence. So I feel a little bit more compassion for my ex-partner, which was hard. So we feel better, right? So when there is suffering, aversion tells us, if you want to be separated from the suffering, follow me, follow me. That is what aversion tells us. And normally we follow aversion. And so if we check, and we will check later today, you can see that that doesn't really bring you relief of your suffering. But if you allow the experience to surface in your mind, and you even say, give it to me, give it to me. I let go of all my resistance to this feeling. It changes, right? And you feel better, and you feel lighter, and you feel more peaceful. And somebody did get a headache. I'm sorry about that. It can happen, you know. I think that might be a little purification that happened. So thank you for that feedback. And remember that, you know, and practice that more often. I think tomorrow we do another meditation where we practice the same principle, but then more extensive, and then also in relation to others. It is so counterintuitive to do this. But once you get a taste of it, it's like, oh, wow, you know, I just can change my experience very quickly, very easily, due to changing my attitude towards the suffering. I've been feeling a loosening of the aversion. I've been feeling for a house help. A loosening of the aversion, you know. So we do not expect that the aversion disappears straight away. Aversion, we have been conditioning our mind with aversion since beginningless time. So, you know, I don't know. when I have unpleasant feelings arising in the mind, there is still aversion every time. And that because it is suffering, you know, and we don't like suffering. And so it takes always a while to think, what can I do with that? Oh, I can take it on. I can stop resisting this feeling. I can welcome that feeling, you know, and then the feeling starts to disappear. So something that I saw in terms of how we listen to the teaching, and I want to say a little bit about that before we continue, is that we all have our mind conditioned in a certain way. So then when we listen to the teachings, we hear them through our conditioning. And so then we might not always hear the way it was intended, right? So we need to keep checking, keep listening. It is, with Buddhism, I always have the feeling, you know, you think that you understand something and then maybe 3 years later, you hear it in a different way and you think, oh my gosh, I never got it like that, you know. Now I understand what Buddhism means. And then maybe 5 years later, you hear again another meaning. And looking back, I think that had a lot to do with the way my mind was conditioned, you know. And so I know that I make mistakes in understanding. So I need to keep checking. I need to keep checking with the text, with my own mind, right? Checking with teachers. So for instance, if we say things do not exist inherently because we cannot find them on the object, then sometimes people do that and they say, then things do not exist at all, you know? So we go in the right direction, but then we go too far. Or we can hear, you know, we have to let go of attachment and we think, oh, eating is bad. You know, I have a lot of attachment to eating, so I have to stop eating. That is too far. You know, we can, in general, we hold on too much onto reality. We hold it as more concrete, more solid than it exists in actuality. And then when we start to realize that we are doing that, then we chuck out the whole thing, you know, but we have to learn to distinguish. Some things we need to let go, and other things, they can perfectly function, no problem. So we need to find the middle way, you know. So what we want to do is we want to change our mind. We want to, and when the mind changes, our behavior changes. We can also start making changes in our behavior, and in dependence on that, the mind changes. But when you start practicing Buddhism, you keep your life living the way you have been doing that before. And then while you're living your life, you observe your mind and you become more aware of your disturbing emotions. And then you try to apply the techniques that help you to lessen the emotions. So we still engage in the same activities, but with less attachment. And you might also be able to develop a more positive motivation. For instance, when we eat, you know, eating is a very strong attachment. And most of us do that 3 times a day. So 3 times a day, that need for food, you know, due to the fact that we have a body that is created by karma and delusions, the body is ruled by karma and delusions. So I need food. It's normal. We are not going to eliminate that. But it is an attachment that we follow 3 times a day, or sometimes even more, sometimes less. So that attachment, it's more habit of attachment and also negative karma. So how can we change that without changing the activity of eating? We can, for instance, do a prayer before we eat. For instance, I can think, I do not want to eat out of attachment and aversion, but solely in order to sustain the body. so that I can be of greatest benefit to sentient beings. Right? And there is not the attachment to the food, but I eat to sustain the body. I can also think about all these creatures that are living in my body, you know, all these bacteria, all these viruses. For them, it's their home. I don't know, we have thousands of them, right? Some people talk about trillions. So what if you offer them the food? You know, it's not because we think I am eating, I am hungry, but is that really just you? You know, maybe it's actually the bacteria in your gut who are screaming for something. And you think it's you, I. You know, so what if you think about all these creatures and you think you're going to offer them food, and you, in that way, you're going to establish a relationship with them. And then you pray that in a future life, you might meet them again in another form, and then maybe you can teach them the Dharma. Then your eating becomes a virtuous activity. Or you can also visualize, if you have a teacher, a special teacher, you visualize a teacher in your heart, you know, and you offer food to your teacher. Then you create a huge amount of merit with every bite you take. So the activity is the same, but you change your mind. And then from all these actions that normally are non-virtuous, we can transform them into virtuous actions just by redirecting the mind. Okay, so you have to think about that, how you're going to do that with other activities. And be a bit creative, I think. So we spoke already about our needs. You know, if we talk about letting go, attachment and aversion, we are scared that we're not getting what we need. So we spoke about how to create the causes so that whatever you need can come to you. And then in terms of the aversion, which has the function of protecting. Aversion and anger function as our protector. So yesterday I mentioned that due to the virus that is around, you know, everyone can carry it and can infect us. And so that brings fear to the mind, and we feel, I need to protect myself, you know. So then we can start pushing people away, or we see them as potential enemies, or maybe even killers. And if these kind of images come to the mind, the heart gets closed. We disconnect from ourselves, from our own heart, but also from other human beings, you know, and then we become rude, or we can treat them badly, you know, or we can treat them like they have some kind of an infectious disease, while they might not be having a disease at all. And even if they would have a disease, you know, you still don't treat them like they're dirt, right? So on the physical level, it is totally fine to follow the guidelines that give you protection. But on the level of the mind, you know, there is the danger. So we need to try to see that these other human beings, they are our fellow human beings. They suffer from exactly the same thing as we suffer from. And we are all the same in that we wish to be free from suffering. So just as you first saw them as a potential killer, they see you also as the potential carrier of an ugly disease, you know. But you know, I have no intention to kill somebody else, right? We are in that regard totally innocent. You are innocent, but also the other person is innocent. And so instead of having this aversion, we can think, I wish you to be free of suffering, you know, I wish you to have happiness. I wish you to have freedom of this problem. I wish everyone to have freedom of this problem. And so the more compassion we can generate like this in the mind, That is our real protection for illness. Compassion is the best protector for any disease. Compassion is the power that heals. That takes care of not getting sick. So not being afraid, if we could get to that place, that would be so beneficial for the mind. So that was just an addition. So I'm not saying don't do this, don't do that. You do whatever you need to do, but check your mind. That the mind is not reacting with this huge aversion and then it's projecting things onto other people that do not belong to other people. Try to generate a mind of loving kindness and compassion. And then you follow all the guidelines that your government gives you. All right. So then there was a question about what are the 5 aggregates. And I know it's good because I sometimes mention that can be very frustrating if you don't know what I'm talking about. So the 5 aggregates are referring to the body and the mind. The first aggregate is the form aggregate. So that is the body. The second aggregate is feeling. The feeling arises in every moment of mind. The third one is discrimination, which is also a quality of the mind that arises in every moment of mind, which says, this is good, this is bad. I like this, I do not like this. Then the fourth one is compositional factors, and that refers to all the other qualities of mind. It can refer to all the disturbing emotions. It can refer to the wisdom, loving kindness, mindfulness, concentration, all the positive mental factors, or all the positive qualities that can arise in the mind. And then the fifth one is the mind itself. So form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness. So then there was a question about fear, and you are repeating that. You thought Jamyang is not going to answer my question, but it is right here on my screen. So we are all suffering and we want to be free from suffering. And so the reason that the Buddha taught was coming from his great compassion. His great compassion wished each and every sentient being to be free from suffering. And what is the way to free yourself from suffering? That comes through knowledge. The better we understand the nature of reality, the better we understand our own mind and how we are mistaken with respect to the nature of reality, the better we can remove the causes for our suffering, and the better we can create causes for happiness. So it is knowledge that frees us from suffering. And in terms of fear, fear is an unpleasant feeling that arises. And then in dependence on that, attachment and aversion strongly arises, right? I think the fear that is triggered at the moment is very deep, deep fear. And it has been triggered in many human beings. And so that is very difficult then to just say, oh, I'll apply the antidote and the fear is gone. We have to work through that. So one way of working through the fear is educating yourself. Another way of that you can apply as antidote to the fear is, where does the fear get triggered? You know, for instance, you listen to the news and the fear gets triggered again and again and again. So do you continue listening to the news? Or do you say, I'll turn it off, you know? Maybe you listen one time a day. So you can change the conditions that create that fear from arising in your mind. Change the conditions, educate yourself, look for what is true and what is not true. You know, with fear is very strange, especially in human beings, you know. If we hear a story about something really dangerous, that can trigger a huge And we are back again. Sorry about that. Sometimes that can happen. So the antidote to fear, we have different antidotes. What else can I say about fear? You know, I did when the lockdown just happened, I felt this fear arising in everyone, you know, so I had a feeling I needed to teach them how to work with fear. So on my YouTube channel, you can find, I think it's 6 teachings on how to work with fear. You can have a listen to that. And educate yourself. How does fear work in the mind? All right. I want to go to the delusions, our topic from today, what we can do when they arise in the mind. So we first look at the antidotes that we can apply in general, that we can apply to any of the disturbing emotions when they arise in the mind. And then we look into the antidotes that we can apply to the specific delusions, like attachment and anger. And then if we have enough time, we go to the self-grasping mind and how we can make the self-grasping mind less tight. So the delusions, when we talk about the delusions, we talk about the disturbing emotions or the negative emotions. And these are the emotions that disturb the mind. And what they have in common is, we have seen before, they all arise from the self-grasping mind. And the self-grasping mind exaggerates how things exist, adds a quality to how things exist. And because of that, all the disturbing emotions that arise from the self-grasping mind, they also exaggerate. They exaggerate the qualities of the objects that we want to have or don't want to have. They exaggerate the qualities of people that we like or that we don't like. And so when they are in the mind is somehow uncontrolled. Uncontrolled in the sense that you are not in control. The delusion is controlling you. The delusion is controlling your thinking. The delusion is controlling your actions. And so because they exaggerate, they're out of touch with reality. But when they arise in the mind, everything appears to be so real. And we believe that things really exist in the way they appear to us. We do that already in general, but when the delusions are in the mind, it is really true. Somebody asked a question. I had to smile a little bit. I'm sorry about that. Let me see where I put that. So when you are angry with someone and they truly did something harmful, and I thought, yes, this is how delusions look like. It is truly like that. And that doesn't mean that what they did was not harmful, but once, we can recognize the delusions, because if we listen to our language, we can hear ourselves. It was really like that. And he was so this and so that. And it was really true. That shows that there is a delusion. That doesn't mean that nothing happened in the way it is described. But we hold on to that is the only way something exists. Well, if we change perspective, we might see something very different. But when the disturbing emotion arises in the mind, we cannot see a different perspective. We can only see one perspective, and that is through the eyes of the delusion, or through the eyes colored by the delusion. So the general antidotes. If we look into what delusions, what keeps them busy, they are always busy with things that have happened in the past, or things that might happen in the future. Attachment and aversion is in the mind. You sit somewhere and your mind keeps going. That we call mental engagement. You are overthinking. And that overthinking is hardly ever related to the present moment. That overthinking is related to something that has happened or something that might happen. And the qualities of that overthinking is when you are thinking about something that you like, there is attachment. When you're thinking about something that you don't like, there is aversion, and maybe even anger. So if we bring our mind back to the body, back to the present moment, connect with the present moment, go for a walk and feel your body walking. Do the dishes and feel your hands doing the dishes. Work in the garden and be really focused upon what you are doing. Then the mind comes to the present moment. Some people go for a run because then they get really good connected with the body. And then after some time, you can feel that the delusions subside. And the mind becomes more clear. And when the delusions subside, there is space in the mind for wisdom to arise. Then our inner wisdom can look at what happened. And we can look without we can come up with a solution or with a way of responding without the disturbing emotions being in charge. So bringing your mind to the present moment doesn't mean we never think about the future. Right? This is when if you think that you have thrown out too much or taking in too much. So if I say that if you want your mind, if you want to create a condition for your mind so that there are less delusions in the mind, in order to do that, you bring your mind to the present moment. That doesn't mean that therefore you never should think about the future. Right? We can hear it like that, but that's not what I'm saying. Bringing the mind back to the present moment is an antidote to the delusions. But then when the delusions have subsided, I can use my wisdom mind and my mind of compassion to think about the future. No problem. But that looks very different than the mind of attachment that is thinking about the future. Right? It's a different quality. So the first antidote is bring the mind to the present moment. The second antidote is observe your disturbing emotions instead of identifying with them. I need to do this a little bit different because I get constantly chats right in front of me. Observe your attachment or your aversion instead of identifying with it. Right? So you can say, I have a huge attachment to money, Okay, you observe that. You can become that and then go after the money, or you can observe that arising in your mind. Oh, wow, there is that attachment again. If we start to work with our disturbing emotions, it is not that from one day or the other, the disturbing emotions are going to go, They will stay in the mind for a long time. They might stay there, I don't know, the rest of your life. But what we do with them, we can change that. So normally when they arise, we believe in them, we follow them, we become that. That is who we are. But instead of that, we can allow them to arise. We see them for what they are. That is my attachment. I do not have to follow that. If the attachment is really strong and you see yourself following your attachment, that is actually already better than not seeing yourself following your attachment, just following it blindly. You first observe yourself, I'm following my attachment. Then maybe at a certain point, you can see that you can stop yourself somewhere. You're not following so far anymore. And at a certain point, you can see the attachment arising in the mind, but you're not having the tendency to follow anymore. And then the attachment becomes less and less strong. Right? That takes time. But it is every time that you can see your attachment or you can see your aversion without being it, you are weakening your disturbing emotions. And so then what we also can do is we can analyze how the delusions are deceptive. They give us the illusion of being able to influence our past or our future if we just think in the right way, or if we are very clever. They give us the illusion of being in control or having control. But we have to check, is that really true? If you have a negative experience, does it really help you? Does it help you to resolve the issue by overthinking what happened again and again? Maybe trying to change the scenario. Does that help you? Or if there is something going to happen in the future which is stressful for you, does it help you to walk through the different scenarios, fueling your anxiety, in an attempt to get control over the situation? You have to check, does that really help me? And then what we also have to check is that we often mistake our thinking of reality as being reality itself. So what we think about the past and we change the past, we might think that that is actually reality itself. We are thinking about it, but we think we are in that reality. And the same for the future. The only place where we have power to change something is in the here and now, is in the present moment. If we want to change our past, we cannot change the past, but we can accept the past and we can do actions to prevent something like happened to us from happening again. We can take actions that is addressing what happened in the past. We can take actions in the present moment. And in order to be most powerful in the present moment, we have to make sure that all the bits of our mind that are abiding in other spaces and times, that they are all with us in the present moment. Then we have all our qualities to do what is most beneficial. Preparing for something that is going to happen in the future, I can think, you know, if I'm anxious, then I can analyze and think, what am I anxious about? And what do I need in order to reduce that anxiety? But what I need is, what can I do now? So that in that future event, the anxiety is not coming up so much. How can I help myself with that? Right? So then also in the present moment, you can engage in activities so that in the future, you suffer less from that anxiety. So being mindful of whatever arises in the mind, you know, the more we are mindful of what is going on, the earlier we can catch ourselves when the disturbing emotions arise. In the beginning, they're not so strong. But then we have this mental engagement, we start thinking, and it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. So if we can stop ourselves as soon as we see it arising, and stop means, for instance, we stop identifying, we say, hey, there I go again, you know, indulging in all these ideas, how things could have been done different, or, you know, that's not going to help me. I redirect my mind, you know, I can distract myself from these disturbing emotions. I'm going to do something more beneficial than just thinking about it. When disturbing emotions arise, we can also do a reality check. You know, is it really true? What I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing? Is it really true? If attachment arises in the mind, we exaggerate the positive qualities of an object or a person. And if aversion arises in the mind, we exaggerate the negative qualities of a person. And often the whole person becomes very wonderful or, you know, very bad. That's our perspective. That's how we color reality under the influence of our disturbing emotions. Is that really true what I'm seeing? Is that really true what I'm thinking? So what if I take the place of an observer of the situation? What is an observer seeing? And what is the person that is standing opposite of me? What is that person seeing when he looks at the same situation? And even doing that, you know, seeing that there are different perspectives. That doesn't mean that what you're feeling is not true, you know. What you're feeling is your feeling, and you can validate that. But the disturbing emotions make it more true and solid and lasting than you would like it to be. So when you see the different perspectives, and it is like, oh, it was just an experience that comes and goes, and just let's move on with life. You know, we don't have to keep hanging and going over it again and again and again. That's not going to be helpful. That's not going to change the situation. Yes, it was an awful experience. Yes, it hurt me very deeply. I can see that that person might not have had the intention to hurt me so deep. I can see that that person was too much occupied with their own affairs, wasn't aware of what was going on for me. That doesn't make the hurt less deep, but it makes it less worthwhile to keep ruminating. And so then you can say, okay, that was not the intention. Often people do not hurt other people because they have the intention to really hurt the people. It is more as a lack of awareness around the situation. Or people just are there because they want to benefit themselves. And that selfish attitude can be experienced as something very hurtful by the other person. So then if we know to take that hurt, in the way that we did in meditation yesterday, we take it on and we let it go. Don't make it your life. And we can also remember the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is clear and knowing. It is a stream of mental events, rising, passing, rising, dissolving back into the mind. And so whatever arises in the mind is impermanent. It comes and goes like a dream, like clouds, like waves. And normally what we do is we identify strongly with the waves, with the clouds. It's almost like we hang on to them. But if we can see, even the disturbing emotion that arises in the mind as a cloud, and we just see it as a cloud passing away. We see it as a wave, and we experience the wave, but we do not have to go with the wave. So you can, for instance, you can say, anger arises in my mind. There is anger in my mind. The anger is not the mind itself. The mind is not anger. Anger is something that arises in the mind and it will dissolve back into the mind. And you repeat that. You are not your anger. The mind is not the same as anger. It is just something that arises in the mind. And you need to let it arise, right? We're not going to suppress it. We're not going to push it away. You let it arise, but you stop hooking onto it and then creating the story with it. It's quite an art. We don't learn that overnight. You have to practice. And every time you become a little bit more familiar with doing things differently. Right, but we are so familiar with these reactions, we cannot expect the mind to change in the next moment. And so while we are observing our disturbing emotions, we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to be non-judgmental with ourselves. You might not like certain reactions, certain disturbing emotions of yourself, or also of your partner or other beings. But disturbing emotions arise due to causes and conditions, many causes and conditions. It is never just one thing. If you had a choice, you would be in a state where you do not have disturbing emotions. But we do not have that choice. We are here. The reason why we are here is because we have these disturbing emotions. The disturbing emotions is what brought us here on this planet, in this body. So we all have them. And so you can beat yourself up for that, but I don't think that is useful. But if you could find an attitude in which you can say, without the disturbing emotions, I wouldn't be here. So in a way, this is what takes me here. But in this lifetime, I have found teachings that are going to show me how I can overcome all these disturbing emotions. In order to find these teachings, I need to have a human body, you know, because they are written in the human language. I need to use my brain in order to understand these teachings. I can do that as a human being. So what a fantastic opportunity do I have? Right? I do not know what I went through in my past lives. I do not know why anger is so strong in my mind, why attachment is so strong in my mind, why I have so much jealousy. I have no idea. But it is there, right? So I'm not going to beat myself up for that. Because when I beat myself up, I get even maybe more anger, more hurt, more suffering. It's not going to be helpful, you know. So if we can have an attitude of loving kindness and forgiveness and compassion towards ourselves, we create a much better platform from which we can start working with the mind. All right, I'm going to speed up. So I'm going to talk about so these are general antidotes that you can apply to all the disturbing emotions that arise in the mind. And then we can apply specific antidotes to specific delusions. And I'll start talking about anger, which is very strongly related to aversion. Anger appears to us as that what is protecting me. That what keeps me separate from things that harm me, from things that I do not like. So it appears to me as a good thing. Anger also sometimes appears as the thing that makes things happen. Right? You read from the psychologists who say, when there's anger in the mind, it is time for change. Anger is gonna make the change happen. I would say when there is anger in the mind, that is a sign that you're in a situation that you really do not like. And you do not need the anger to change that situation. Just on the side. When we are very angry, we are very sharp, right? We can see exactly what is going to hurt the person. We know to say exactly the words, how to say them to hurt the other person most. Anger has that kind of clarity. We feel very strong when anger is in the mind. And we feel very right. Anger says, I am right and you are wrong. And anger is ready to fight for that. Right? So we can be angry with a very friendly face. Look very friendly, but I want to be right. Then you can be sure that actually there is anger underneath. If you're not angry, if you're coming from loving kindness and compassion, you have no need that the other person tells you that you are right. No need. You know, you are very happy to leave it somewhere in the middle. It doesn't matter. But anger wants to be right. So we need to know what anger looks like, right? Because anger appears as something that is going to help you, something that is going to protect you, something that is going to make things happen. Well, if we look what happens in the mind when anger is in the mind is very disturbed. You know, it looks like it is sharp and focused. But if you close your eyes and you feel what happens in the mind, it's very disturbed. And also the mind that is angry, especially if there are human beings involved, we often want that person that harmed us to receive some kind of suffering. Right? We prefer, maybe we do not want to do it ourselves because we are Buddhists, we are practicing loving kindness, but deep inside we wish that person to suffer. And if they fall down the stairs, we say, karma coming back to him. That's anger. Right? That's a mind that makes you unhappy, makes others unhappy. That is a mind that if we allow that mind to arise, it might destroy not just the happiness, but also material possessions of oneself, of others. You can harm physically other sentient beings due to your anger. You can harm yourself out of anger. And when we are very angry, at a human being or at an animal, we cause a lot of fear in a person. Sometimes you have a relationship can destroy the whole relationship. One moment of anger can make that other person never ever trust you again. When anger is in the mind, very easily what comes out of the mouth is not so nice anymore. Right? So anger is dangerous, it destroys a lot. And so when it is in the mind, it makes the mind very unhappy and vicious. And then if we look in terms of karma, it leaves imprints in the mind to become angry again in the future, but also to experience fear in the future. And next time when similar conditions arise, anger arises again. So then we create a habit of lashing out with anger. So what is the antidote to anger? So one is practicing the quality of patience. Patience is a mind that is undisturbed by harm, the mind that can bear the harm. So what we practiced yesterday in the meditation, that is training the mind that bears the harm, that can bear suffering. If we know how to take on suffering and we're not scared of doing that, we know how it feels. Then when things happen, the mind doesn't get disturbed. That's the mind of patience. And then the other quality of anger is that we wish the other person to suffer. So how can we change that mind of anger? By practicing loving kindness. Loving kindness wishes the other person to be happy. So if somebody harms me and I can practice the mind of loving kindness, yes, you hurt me deeply, but I still wish you to be happy. Anger cannot arise. Maybe anger in the sense of the disturbance, but not the anger that wished the other person to be harmed or the other person to suffer. Because with respect to one person, I cannot generate two opposite wishes at the same time. I cannot wish happiness to that person and at the same time suffering to the person. It's not possible in the mind. This hurt very much, but I still wish you to be happy. In the beginning, that sounds insane and impossible. But again, after, when you start practicing, after some time, your wish for that other person to be happy and your experience of the hurt, they're like two different things in the mind. They're not one event anymore. When we are untrained, then as soon as we get harmed, we want to lash out back to that person. And the harm that I experience is totally connected to that other person. There is no differentiation possible yet. So we need to train the mind in that. And so then we can also do general antidotes. You know, we think about impermanence and death, we think about karma, we think about, you know, how it would be if we would be in the other person's shoes. And then the general antidotes that I already discussed. So there was a question that said, when you're angry with someone and they truly did something harmful, how do you maintain compassion and how do you calmly address the issue with them? So when you are angry, I would say first sit with yourself. Take on, the anger is a reaction to the hurt. So first sit with yourself and take on the hurt. And do that until there is no reaction anymore in the mind, until there is no anger anymore in the mind. Then the mind is calm. Then also the mind is conjoined with your wisdom mind. Then if you feel that you need to address the issue, you can address the issue and compassion will be there and your mind will be calm naturally. Right? When you are still angry, don't try to be calm because you're not. If you're angry, don't try to be compassionate because you're not. When you're angry, connect with what made you so angry, which is the hurt. Connect with the experience. Practice what we did yesterday until the experience totally dissolves. You know, it dissolves back into the mind. And with that, my experience is often a lot of wisdom comes with that. That you understand that hurtful experience in relation to yourself. What it means for you, why it happened to you. And you also have much more space to see the other person's perspective. And so once you have really experienced the hurt, there is no more reaction in the mind. Then your mind is calm. You know, then with that naturally also comes what you can do, what is beneficial to do in relation to the other person. Okay. Attachment. So we talk about attachment, and sometimes we call that also desire or desirous attachment. And then we might think, so all desire is bad, you know, or all desire is the same as attachment. But we can have desire for positive things. For instance, we can have desire to develop all our qualities, our positive qualities. We have the desire to benefit other sentient beings. These desires, they are desires, but they are not attachments. So we do not wish to remove them or to eliminate them or to, you know, these are positive qualities that you're going to develop. I wouldn't call that attachment. Attachments means grasping mind. I want. Out of grasping, right? I want so that I can be of greatest benefit is a very different wanting than I want this for myself. So you need to check that. So desires attachment is, according to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the source of all our problems. But it is also the reason why we are here. It is the reason why we have taken this body. You know, we take a body under influence of karma and delusions. But what really impels us in this body is the craving that happened at the end of last life, of our previous life. So we are all our actions are somehow driven by attachment. And sometimes the Lamas say attachment is like a skin disease, that itches. And so when it starts itching, we scratch. And when we scratch, there is this relief, like, oh, that feels so good. And then we stop. And then after 5-10 seconds, it starts itching again. And we have to scratch again to give ourselves this relief. This is how we need pleasurable experiences. But when we have pleasurable experiences, that is just like scratching, like the itching skin disease. So it would be much better if we had no skin disease at all. So what is desire? What does it do? Desire looks like the one who is giving us what we need. Desire looks like giving us what we want. Desire looks like bringing us pleasure and happiness. Every time again. And every time when it arises, we believe it. But if we really look into desire, then we can see that when we follow desire, there is never satisfaction. There is never real peace. When we follow desire, there is always dissatisfaction. And then we try again, and we try again. And every time again, there is dissatisfaction. And we think, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I'll try it like this. And we try it again. And again, there is dissatisfaction. So to find satisfaction, desire is the wrong tool. Attachment is the wrong tool. When there is desire in the mind, and we check carefully, there is always something missing. No matter how much we try to enjoy different places, food, clothing, anything that we can obtain, there is always something missing. Ask yourself, the happiness that I experience, is that complete? Having the object of desire and not having the object of desire are both subject. If I leave that, my problem will be gone. Then we get the object. And with that, new problems come. Have you ever noticed that? That every object comes with its own problems. So having an object or not having an object, there are always problems. Because we are living in samsara. We are living in cyclic existence, which is produced by our delusions. So there are always problems. And we also know that having the object of desire, in the beginning, there is maybe a feeling of pleasure. But then if we keep having that object, maybe take more of it, that feeling of pleasure starts to change into suffering. And then we can think about following desire itself, that is suffering. Think about being addicted. Addiction shows desire, never satisfied, always wanting more, being driven. It's like scratching your skin disease. You have to keep taking it. You have to keep doing it. That having to keep engaging, keep indulging, keep getting that object that you feel you need, that is suffering. And then by following that desire, we also create more causes for suffering in the future. And so if we do not do anything about desire, desire will be there with us in next life again. And Lama Zopa says, you know, compared to cancer, cancer is nothing compared to having desire, having attachment. Because cancer will be finished at the end of this life, at the latest. But desire you take with you. Another lifetime, another lifetime, another lifetime. And so when we use our life to fuel that desire, life becomes empty, no meaning. You know, the heart is not touched. And it's going to be very late and I haven't even finished the desire. So I think I'm going to leave it for now, for here. I say tomorrow a little bit more about the desire, but a tiny little bit. And how we can practice the antidotes. And then we'll continue with the self-cherishing and with the self-grasping and the self-cherishing mind. All right, I'll do one question. I think all desires are bad because if we want to help others or purify ourselves, it's not desire, it's aspiration. Am I wrong? So that is just how you define. You know, this is a play of words. So I said there are two types of desire. One is a desirous attachment, and another desire is desiring something that is positive in terms of your development. So if you want to call that aspiration, I'm happy with that, you know. But if you're going to tell me that I'm wrong because I use the word desire, I don't know where this is going, you know. I'm just giving you what I've learned. So, but it is fine to call that aspiration. Are you saying that delusions cause exaggeration? No, what I'm saying is that all the delusions exaggerate what we are perceiving. They color our perception. I'll say tomorrow a little bit more about that. And I will keep reading your questions and try to answer as many as I can. So I thought today it's maybe nice to do a meditation on love. After having done the self-compassion, I think we can meditate on love. All right. So make sure that you sit comfortably. Relax your body and mind. And let all your thoughts, your worries subside. You can observe your breath by observing the rising and falling of your abdomen until you feel calm and your focus is in the here and now. And imagine all living beings around you. See yourself as you are right now, with all your faults and shortcomings, and with the recognition that you have the potential to free yourself from all your problems. How do you feel with yourself? Do you feel safe, loved, appreciated? How do you talk to yourself? How do you listen to yourself? See your needs, your hurt, your love, your tolerance. Generate from the depth of your heart a wish for yourself to experience all the happiness and goodness you can imagine. Send from your heart white light, which fills your whole body. Feel that all your needs are fulfilled. You experience happiness, bliss, and a smile appears on your face. Then pay attention. Your mother is on your left, your father on your right, and other relatives and friends are behind you. Visualize in front of you those you dislike or who have hurt you. And all other sentient beings are around you in human form, right to the horizon. They're all sitting quietly like you. And a sense of harmony and peace pervades everyone. How nice would it be if you were able to love all these beings? Just as you, they all want to be happy. They all want to be free of suffering. And they are all trying to make the best of their lives, even those who are angry and violent. The love that you just generated for yourself and which has filled your whole body with light and love overflows and flows out to others. Start with your family and close friends sitting near to you. A warm, luminous energy radiates from your body, touching them and filling their whole bodies and minds. Think sincerely when you look at each of them. May you be happy. May all your thoughts be positive and all experiences good. And the light that is overflowing from your body gives them everything they need until they are completely fulfilled. Their minds become completely peaceful, clear, and full of pure happiness. A blissful smile appears on their face. Then turn your attention to the people in front of you, those that you have difficulty with, and contemplate that they are also in need of happiness, and that you can give that to them by sending them love. Imagine your positive, loving energy flowing out from your heart to those people, filling their whole bodies and mind. Think sincerely when you look at each of them. May you be happy, may you be well. May all your thoughts be positive and all experiences good. And you give them everything they need until they are completely fulfilled. Their minds become completely peaceful, clear, and full of pure happiness. A blissful smile appears on their face. Continue to send your positive, loving energy out to all other people. Imagine that your love flows into every direction, reaching all beings. And you can think of those who are lonely, busy, sick, healthy, hungry, the well-fed. You can think of those who are confused and those who are clear. Those who are oppressed and those who are oppressing. Those who are frustrated and those who are irritating. Those who are frightened and those who are frightening. And whoever comes to your mind, think sincerely. May you be happy, may you be well. May all your thoughts be positive and all experiences good. You give them everything they need until they are completely fulfilled. Their minds become completely peaceful, clear, and full. And a blissful smile appears on their face. Concentrate on this feeling of love. And contemplate your own potential to love everyone. And rejoice in that capacity. Then generate a strong wish to develop this potential more and more. To do this, we have to overcome our self-centered mind with all its disturbing emotions and keeping our mind open for the big universal love, which leads to happiness of ourselves and others. And then think that all the merit created by generating a positive motivation, by listening to the teachings, by reflecting, and now by meditating. May any living being, just by seeing, hearing, touching, remembering, or talking about me, about you, immediately be free of all obstacles to happiness, from disease, spirit harm, negative actions and obscurations, and quickly achieve the highest happiness of full enlightenment. And then we can dedicate that all the positive energy that we have gathered by engaging in these activities, we can dedicate them to all beings, including ourselves, that we all find all temporary and ultimate happiness. And then I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for all the questions asked, for your patience, for your concentration, for your perseverance. I really appreciate that. And I rejoice in all that merit that we are creating here together. Thank you so much. Tomorrow we have the last session in this row of 6. And I hope that I'm going to see you then. All right. Bye-bye.